Something about that final second on the clock felt different the moment the answer hung in the air. You could almost sense the studio holding its breath as Paul Sinha, the Sinnerman himself, faced the kind of pressure that rarely catches him out. One wrong call, 1 second too late, and suddenly two contestants were walking away with a life-changing £100,000 between them. Bradley Walsh's voice carried that familiar mix of delight and mischief when he turned to Paul and said it was a funny way to hand in his notice. It was pure chase theatre, the kind of moment that lingers long after the credits roll. What made it land so hard wasn't just the size of the jackpot. It was the way the entire atmosphere shifted in those closing moments. Contestants Ian and Karen had built something special. Ian, the magician from London, had quietly banked his share early. Then Karen took the kind of risk that makes viewers lean forward on their sofas. She accepted the high offer, the kind of bold move that can either make a team or leave them empty-handed. Paul's dry observation that it was either brilliant or terrible news for Ian captured the tension perfectly. In that instant the studio felt charged, the way it does when ordinary people suddenly hold the possibility of something extraordinary. Many watching at home found themselves rooting harder than usual. There's something deeply human about seeing someone take that leap. The final chase became a proper battle of nerves. The team pushed Paul back twice. He stayed close, as he almost always does. Then came the questions that refused to land cleanly. With time evaporating, the usual calm authority that surrounds Paul seemed to tighten. Viewers online later talked about the way he reacted when the clock ran down, the small shift in posture, the brief flash of frustration that any competitor would recognize. It wasn't dramatic in a showy sense. It was quieter than that, and somehow more revealing. Bradley's joke about the notice landed because it was affectionate rather than cutting. The relationship between host and chaser has always been one of the show's quiet strengths. There's a warmth there, a shared understanding that the game is serious and ridiculous at the same time. When Paul admitted he'd cost ITV a six-figure sum and then shrugged it off with characteristic dryness, it felt like the kind of moment that reminds you why this program has lasted so long. The chasers are brilliant, but they are also human. They miss questions. They feel the weight of a big pot. And the audience feels it with them. Some people watching that night seemed almost protective of Paul. Others celebrated the underdogs with pure joy. Both reactions make sense. The chase works because it lets ordinary people dream out loud while experts try to stop them. When the experts occasionally fail, the dream becomes real and the room changes. Karen's decision to go high wasn't reckless in the end. It was calculated bravery, and it paid off in the most public way possible. Ian's plans for a new car and Karen's hope of taking her son to the Abu Dhabi Grand Prix grounded the whole thing. These weren't abstract numbers. They were real lives suddenly altered by a few minutes of television. What stayed with many viewers wasn't simply the win. It was the thin line between triumph and the near miss. 1 second. One answer. The difference between walking away empty and walking away transformed. Television rarely shows that edge so cleanly. Most of the time the chasers close the gap with clinical precision. On this occasion the gap held, and the studio celebrated. Paul still found the grace to tell the pair they deserved every penny. That small moment of sportsmanship may have been the most telling of all. It reminded everyone that the competition is fierce, but the respect remains. There's a reason moments like this keep people talking days later. They reveal something about how we watch. We invest in the contestants' nerves. We feel the chaser's rare vulnerability. We enjoy Bradley's ability to turn pressure into shared laughter. The notice line was pure banter, yet it carried a strange emotional weight because it acknowledged how high the stakes had become. For a few minutes the usual order of the show tilted, and viewers felt the shift. Perhaps what lingers longest is the reminder that even the most consistent performers have days when the questions refuse to cooperate. Paul has been a fixture of the program for years, A presence that combines sharp knowledge with dry humor. Seeing him on the receiving end of a genuine scare only made the victory feel more earned. The team didn't just answer questions. They held their nerve when it mattered most. And maybe that's why the exchange between Bradley and Paul continues to spark conversation. It wasn't just about money or a single blunder. It was about the unpredictable heart of live television, the way a few seconds can turn a familiar format into something memorable. Viewers still find themselves replaying the final push, the near silence before the result, the sudden release of celebration. What did you notice in those closing moments? Did the atmosphere feel different to you too? Sometimes the moments that stay with us aren't the ones that go perfectly to plan. They're the ones that almost didn't.